Welcome to Be Now, where we discuss what is happening in and around Brampton. My name is Don McLeod, and welcome for Tuesday. What is it? April the 12th already. Wow, halfway through the month. We're flying by. Anyway, today we're going to talk about social media right off the top of the bat. Social media is, it can be used for good or bad, but at the same time, politicians love to use it as a platform to post pictures that they're doing stuff, they're doing things, they're out in their community, supporting local events, which is all well and fine. But at the same time, those people that are actually posing with the politician have a duty and responsibility to understand who they're posing with. Last week, there was a William Osler Hola Galley in support of William Osler. And we have a picture. And this was the picture that was tweeted out by Gurpreet Singh Dhillon, who is regional councillor for Ward 9 and 10. And with him, you can see you have the chief of police, you have four, five, six people total. You have another woman on the side, and I'm not sure is that Ron Chadha or not. So anyway, you have quite a few police officers with Gurpreet Dhillon. The problem I see with this is Gurpreet Dhillon basically has had a sexual harassment charge against him. He was in 2019 on a trip to Turkey, and there was a complaint filed against him. He had an integrity commissioner complaint. He took that to the Supreme Ontario Court, basically fighting the report that the IC put through. There was an audio recording that lasted over 30 minutes, where was stated she said no over 74 times. The ethics or the integrity commissioner came down with four ethic violations: harassment, dishonorable conduct, failure to adhere to council policies and procedure. And she also noted that she would have recommended Gurpreet Dhillon immediate removal from council had it been within her jurisdiction to do so. So you have 6, 7 people, including the chief of police, posing with this councillor that basically the integrity commissioner found had 4 ethics violations. And you have the chief of police posing with him along with other members of the police force. This is almost like a situation where Mel Lastman had with the Hells Angels. You have to know who you're posing with. This is not a good look for the Peel Regional Police. It is something that, you still have the person that had the harassment against, still, as far as I understand, has a lawsuit against the current sitting councillor. And you have the Peel Regional Police posing with this person. It is not a good look, in my estimation, for the chief of police or any police officer to be posing with this person when there is still a case before the court and all the dishonorable conduct that went through with his IC. The next day, the police chief and Sylvia Jones were in Brampton to discuss a whole bunch of money, whack of money being thrown. And the interesting part here is to provide support for intimate partner violence, which basically is harassment. We've covered Hope 24/7, which is an organization in Brampton that deals with domestic violence, harassment, and rape, and dealing with these women on a one-on-one. And it's not a pretty thing. The most of the stigmatization that they go through on a regular basis is something that is unheard of. And in my estimation, I may be wrong, but I'm looking at this from my point of view as social media. And it's like, this is not a good look for the Peel Regional Police to be posing. I don't care if it's Holy Gala, in support of William Osler. You have to know who you're posing with. And in this case, in my estimation, it is not a good look for the Peel Regional Police, because basically victims take a look at the police to help them, not to pose with people that have been, as I said, the IC would have recommended an immediate dismissal if it was within her jurisdiction to do so. Which brings us to another point that I know we brought up before, and I know the agenda was actually talking about it last week, and that was the Toothless Municipal Act. The most that politicians, if they break ethics and violate rules and code of conduct within municipalities, is basically 90 days without pay. That's it. It's like a slap on the wrist. It's like the situation in Mississauga with Ron Starr. He didn't key a fellow councillor's car just once. It was multiple times. If I was to go down and key Ron Starr's car, I would be charged by police, but there were no charges, and then there were no complaints or integrity commissioner complaints filed or actually pursued, which, you know, you have sitting councillors on Brampton Council that have 4 or 5 ethic violations, and they're running for the Conservative Party. You have other councillors like Gurpreet Dhillon. You cannot get them out. You have to wait for 4 years, even though it's a serious violation. And the Municipal Act is a toothless act that basically, in my estimation, needs to be changed, and it needs to be changed by the next government, whoever that is. If it's Liberal, Conservative, whatever, it needs to be changed, because you cannot have people representing constituents and have serious violations like this that are still making decisions. And you have the person who made the complaint here, who was a Brampton business owner that was in Turkey at the same time. And it's like, I don't know where she lives, that hasn't been revealed, but at the same time, it must be, if I was the victim looking at that, I'm like, really, you're going to pose with 6 people from the Peel Regional Police, including the chief, and all smiles and happy. So I'm just going to leave it there. That's my estimation, but it's not a good look. So politicians, yes, they like to take pictures, but you got to take a look at who you're taking pictures with. This is a bad look in my estimation. The other thing we're going to discuss is the $1 million Bowman Barn. Again, we're still waiting. There was 2 reports that were supposed to be tabled in February that haven't, because the 6 basically shut down the council. Forget about accountability and transparency. The first one was before they voted on the $500,000 or the $1 million that they were going to give to the barn. The report was supposed to come out on the condition of the barn. Well, from what I hear, the condition of a barn, only 20% of the beams are actually usable. And part of the recommendation that was from the engineer was said they have to build basically a brand new barn, and they were looking at another barn in another jurisdiction to buy it, to bring it over as well. So this barn sitting in Sandalwood is just basically rotting away, and $500 million has already been allocated for this term, and $500,000, not 500 million, 500,000 this term, 500,000 the next term, has already been allocated. That was the first report we still haven't seen, because the CEO was fired and the CEO put together that report. Coincidence? Well, possibly, because the second report came out, and we saw it in the agenda before that canceled meeting, because they post the agenda basically the Friday before the Wednesday council meeting. And we wrote an article on it, and basically there was a whole bunch of information in that article saying that there was a whole bunch of disparaging things in regards to that, and one of the things later on in that report was saying that, the city staff was directed not to really, muddy the water, don't say anything, because apparently the people in this group, the Friends of Beauvert House, were very vocal, so we wouldn't want to upset them. So, go to the article, read it, and you'll have a whole bunch of information on that report. But those 2 reports have still not been put out. And in May the 1st, basically, council is finished, because that's when people can register for voting for the municipal election, as well as, going forward, we have the provincial election as well. But you have a council that's not doing anything until the new one is come in. But the money's already been allocated. How is that transparent, and how is that any accountability? I messaged the new CAO, or the interim CAO, 2 weeks ago, Paul Morrison, and I asked him, to come on and talk about basically the hirings and firings. They got rid of the CAO, they got rid of the human resources, they got rid of the integrity commissioner. From what I understand now, the director of communications is gone. So basically, it plays out like an episode of The Sopranos. Who's going to get whacked next? But he hasn't responded at this point in time. And it's like, you're the acting CAO of a corporation in the 9th largest city of Ontario. We have At this point in time, no human resource director. We have no integrity commissioner. So if there's any kind of complaint against any kind of sitting councillors, there's nowhere to file it. The integrity commissioner had 2 integrity commissioner complaints against 2 sitting councillors, 2 of the 6 that actually signed that letter, that are basing sitting in limbo. 2 of the other councillors that had integrity commissioner complaints and were found guilty of numerous ethics violations, Charmaine Williams and Gurpreet Dhillon, they're part of that 6 as well. So, I don't see where the accountability and transparency comes in when I send an email and nobody responds. Nothing. It's like, oh, well, he's on vacation or anything else, just ignore it. So, we have a problem with that. We have a problem with the Municipal Act. We have a problem with what's going on at City Hall in regards to wages and benefits, because all these people are going to be looking at benefits. I know last week or the week before we were talking about Harry Schlang, who was the last CAO. He's still getting paid well over $300,000. I asked Pat Fortini about that and Martin Medeiros when we had them on. And it's like, well, that was, it was part of the deal. Well, what deal are these people getting to buy it? Once you fire people, how many years are going to be paying for these people? So there's a lot of questions, but we're not going to let them go. I mean, we're not going anywhere. There's going to be a whole bunch of questions coming down the pipeline, and we're not going to stop, because in my estimation, like Joe Warmington said about the barn, if you can't build it for $100,000, that idea should be taken out behind the barn and shot. Right? $1 million barn, and from what I understand, it's not even a barn anymore. They have to build a whole brand new barn. So where are those 2 missing reports that the CAO, who is now fired, was going to report to council? Where are they, and when are they going to be released? That is it for that. We're going to talk about the Canada summer jobs now, and joining me now is Fazal Khan.
Hi, Don.
How do you? I love to rant. It gets a whole bunch of stuff out of me, but it's like these are situations that have to be talked about. But enough is enough. Let me go to the Canada summer jobs. You wanted to talk about that every year. I know that Brampton Focus employs a whole bunch of students on a regular basis. We give them jobs, and I don't know why some of them are useless, but
yeah. So we're still waiting to find out if there's always a chance we don't get any funding for this program, but we've been doing it for 5 years now. I think we have a pretty good track record, so we're expecting it. A lot of the students are already contacting us. So I just wanted to put that on the agenda so that anybody watching, if you do have a student or know of a student, please have them send me an email or just connect with me on Twitter. I actually prefer Twitter because it shows me their social media. So have them connect with me or Don, send Don an email because it's a grueling process to interview everybody, and I don't like to say no to students. So, if we can get good referrals, kind of that's diverse and, it's cross-section of the city, that would be great. So if you know somebody, please have them contact us.
Karen mentioned, does the kid have to have social media?
Well, most of what we do is social media. So if they know how to create videos, or if they know how to do some back-end software development, those are good skills to have. But we do like them to have some form of social media, or they have to be able to demonstrate communication skills too.
Well, part of the big thing is that, and we've been doing this, how many, 6-7 years we've been hiring students? Yeah. So we started off, obviously hiring students, didn't know what we were doing, but, we hired them anyway. But, we're up to the point where
I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. Okay. Me, I just found it like herding cats, right? They're all over the place. But, at the same time, we found that students who have social media, it doesn't mean that they have good communication skills, but it does mean that they're actually out there interacting, which is an important part. We find sometimes you have social media skills, but you have no person-to-person interaction skills, because basically all you're doing, everything is on social media. So it doesn't mean that they're disqualified, but sometimes one is, one leads into the other, and it can be helpful. So
if they have a gray beard, they are disqualified.
Is Mike too old? Mike is too old for a lot of things, including living, I think, at this point in time, right? So,
jeez. But it's a great experience. We have I think a pretty solid track record. Students who go on to do some bigger things. Like we've got one student who graduated law school from Queens, another one's at the law school. We've got a number of people going through engineering, working at IBM. And they all say that the value they get from the communication side of things.
Well, the other one is we have one out in the Vancouver Canucks. He's in regards to communications in the Vancouver Canucks organization. So
yeah. So we've got a lot of people out there. We know what we're doing, and communication skills. And I think did we show that video with Hazel the other day? And she even agreed the number one skill in this day and age is communications. So.
Yeah, which, and it's the right communication. As I said off the top of the show, I mean, posing with someone who's got a problem, that's not correct communication, but we'll get into that later. So after the Canada Summer Job.
I would want to give a shout out to the federal government. That it's an excellent program. I don't know how many hundreds of millions they spend every summer on this program, but it's money well spent because it gives kids, especially high school kids who it's often their first job, gives them that first experience. So they're, and we try to do a good job with them, right? We don't want them to leave thinking this is how the job world is, right? Don's always yelling.
Well, we have to tell them exactly how the job is, because basically, we get a lot of students that come in and it's like, when you actually give them a time and a date to do things, and when they don't do it, you actually turn around and say, this is no good. It's a shock on their face, but when they have their first job and their first commitment to earning money, they're going to find out pretty quick. So it's better from us rather than some boss kicking their butt and firing them.
Yeah we're louder than we are. What's the saying?
Your bark is worse than your bite.
There we go. Okay. All right, next topic is car theft. So I saw this video yesterday. It scared me a little bit, right? Because it affects everybody. So we kind of edited a little bit. We kind of blurred some people's faces and license plates and all that, and we made it a little easier. So let's watch it. We also took the audio out, right? Because the person in the video, I don't think he really wants to talk to anybody. I think the Brampton Guardians reached out to him, and he's not willing to talk. So let's watch the video, and we'll talk about it. Okay, so, this is a gentleman putting his infant, I think an 8-month-old infant, in the backseat of the car. And what you want to do is want to watch the top of the video, and we'll have a little red circle. So he goes back into the house, car passes by, stops before the stoplight, right? So I don't know if he was being tracked. Somebody gets out of the car. And we are in a pandemic, so it's not uncommon to see somebody with a mask. But then look what happens. This is 12 o'clock on noon on Sunday, by the way. So the gentleman sees what's going on. The person in the driver's seat is now trying to steal the car. Look at that. I'm surprised the driver and the other child wasn't injured. And now the car is left and drive. The owner probably doesn't know, it smashes the driveway. So there's actually audio for that. So that is just incredible video. It's scary because this was in Brampton. It's just the southeast corner of Chinguacousy and Queen Street here in Brampton. The police do know about it. So I think they'll catch that person, right? Because there's a lot of people with video cameras. But what do you think about that, Don?
Well, it's pretty brazen. I mean, don't forget, I mentioned to you, the Peel Regional Police put out a bulletin a couple of days prior to that saying that they had caught, I think it was 3 or 4 they were basically young males under 17 years old that were robbing the pharmacies, right? So this is it an ongoing thing? We reported under Chief Jennifer Evans, we had a guns and gangs, and we were talking about the amount of, at that time, there was a shooting on the 410 North, and there was all sorts of different shootings around Brampton. And we were talking about, how much gangs were infiltrating from outside of Brampton and moving inside of Brampton. And there was quite a bit, actually. At that time, I think it was over 1,000 gang members in Brampton alone, and there was I think there was it 25 or 35? I'd have to go back and take a look. Different gangs in Brampton at that time, and some of the gangs were doing either grow-ups, they were doing human trafficking or drug trafficking out, because the new subdivisions basically make it easier for people to go into the community, gang members, buy a house, rent a house, and blend in, because they're all new subdivisions. Nobody knows their neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we're starting Neighborhood Watch.
So thanks for that soliloquy, Don. So Karen mentions the police mentioned not to leave your car running, but who has not done what that gentleman did there, right? Just, I guess, I don't know why the key was in the car to begin with.
Well, people started up, I guess, and I'll be back in a second. I'm just going to the front door, grabbing the kid, right?
Yeah, so I don't blame the owner there. That was just, who could it? It was like 10 seconds, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that we can do. It's like, keep the door locks, this and that, and everything else. But at the same time, the expectations that we have of law enforcement, I mean, you take a look at the budget that they just released, that they got from the provincial government. How much was that? $24.7 million. And, there's a lot of money out there, but it's like, you cannot do, everybody, warms their car up in the winter and so on and so forth. Yeah.
So, if you, we'll probably post that video separately. Just take precautions, right? Don't just assume, I don't have a new car, and I have an electric car, so it's a little easy.
Nobody wants an electric car. They can only go so far. You know what I mean?
Know how to put my car in reverse, so.
You're going to take it. You're not going to drive to Manitoba because there's no charging stations. You're going to get halfway and you're going to drop.
So somebody's going to steal a car from Brampton and drive it to Manitoba, are they?
Yeah, and you're not going to worried about being a car theft ring, stealing an electric car to go over to like overseas Nigeria or something like that, because they have no charging stations, right?
Yet another reason to buy an electric car. It won't get stolen.
There you go.
Okay, let's move on.
Karen mentions they came back 6 months to steal their Civic. Must have been pretty desperate to steal a Civic.
All right, Don, we are going really slowly here today. The next topic is and I'll let you cover this because...
Oh, the mayonnaise militia. I love this. I love this tag. This is what people are calling the Pierre Poilievre crowds out west in Alberta and everything else. They're calling it basically the mayonnaise militia, because everyone in those pictures has got to be over 50. They're all white, right? Somebody mentioned on Twitter that if there was 1% of his crowd an ethnic diversity, please let me know. I love that name, Mayonnaise Militia. It's beautiful. They're talking about freedom in this, freedom that. I love it. It's perfect.
Okay, well, I'm not going to mention anything but the mayonnaise militia because I'm already in trouble with that gang.
That gang, I love it.
And you can talk about them because you could be perceived as part of that militia.
I could if I was following or being sucked into Pierre Poilievre's vortex, but everything he talks about, cryptocurrency against inflation and this and that. He's talking about the federal government with, housing and this and that. Meanwhile, he owns investment houses and he rents out houses. He's part of the problem, not the solution, right? It's like,
yeah, you know what? His campaign looks like it's doing really well and he's attracting a lot of people, but there's a lot more to that leadership campaign. And I think he's going to start getting a lot more attention. There's going to be dirt coming out, no doubt. And then the other competitors, obviously, Mayor Patrick Brown and Jean Charest, are kind of tag teaming, it seems, right? They're going at him from the left and from the right. So it'll be interesting to see who actually gets to that leadership position.
Well, PP, as we call him, he's promoting himself as I'm the next prime minister, and he's running as the next. He's not even been ordained as a leader of the Conservative Party. You might want to think and actually study the rules, PP, because you know what? You have to actually be ordained as a leader to run for a position of prime minister.
He's following the Trump playbook, right? He's got a cultish following. You can't say anything bad about the guy, otherwise they could start attacking you. So I don't know. It's going to be tough to beat him.
That's why the mayonnaise militia is beautiful. It is a cult. It's like, you take a look at the crowds. It's like it's all white, middle class, older people,
Hey.
probably have their own homes and everything else.
Here's Don's email. He said that. I did not. Okay, let's move on to our final topic. Was it today's
provincial election? Yeah, it's coming up pretty soon. So, there was one thing that was pretty startling the other day. Kevin Yardy, which is Brampton North for NDP, he was not actually endorsed as a candidate to run in Brampton North, which is unbelievable because he's a sitting MPP and he's not even endorsed. Like, how often does that happen?
Nominated, right?
Nominated,
So,
but still endorsed as a nomination.
yeah, the Andrea Horwath could have probably, just said you're the nominee, but they have an open nomination process. And, Kevin Yardy was missing in the last 4 years. He'd show up to the occasional event. You'd never see him out in the community. So
he doesn't live in Brampton. He didn't live in Brampton.
Right. I heard where does he live? Or I don't want to, he
doesn't live in Brampton, basically.
It doesn't matter because he's done, right?
Yeah, but I just find it like, for a sitting MPP to have the riding association not endorse him as the candidate, there's got to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then obviously Councillor Charmaine Williams is running in Brampton Centre against the incumbent Sarah Singh, who is the deputy leader for the NDP. So that's a big seat for the NDP to win. And I'm not sure she's going to win it, to be honest. I'm not sure who will. I won't say Charmaine Williams will. I think it's all three parties have a chance.
Yeah, all three parties have a chance, just like anything else. But at the same time, I mean, my position is, take a look at Doug Ford. It's an accident waiting to happen. It's 4 years of just like unbelievable goofs.
I say because the other parties are so weak, I say Doug Ford is going to get a minority at minimum. At minimum.
Well, it would be good if that happened, because then maybe something would happen, because all I've seen over the years, and we covered this last week, in 4 years in Brampton, like we have our MPPs for Doug Ford saying, look at what we've given Brampton. I do not see one iota of anything solid that we have got from Doug Ford.
My wife picked up the mail today. I asked her if we got our rebate from the license. I haven't even got that yet. So
you're not getting one. Are you getting one for your electric car? You shouldn't get one.
She's got a regular car, but I pay the same sticker you do.
Well, anyway, it'd be interesting because we'll cover.
I'm not voting until I get my money in the mail.
Okay. Well, a lot of people, what they're doing is they're turning around and giving it to either the NDP or the Liberals, campaign. So,
All right, now we got 1 second. Otherwise, we're going to go over our time limit. So
all right. So listen, we'll talk to you next Tuesday. We'll see what's happening in and around Brampton. And thank you for joining us.
See you next week.